Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Last week's National Interest had talked about India's shrinking defense budgets as a percentage of the budget and the GDP and the need to raise them. And we had promised you that coming week, that is now, we will talk about how to raise that additional money and where to spend it. However, this is a very political week. US presidential election result has come out and it is quite an important result. So this issue for the moment has been overtaken by politics. So I'm taking a week's recess on that defense argument and we'll be back with it next week. This is the week of politics, politics, politics. Meanwhile, with great pride and pleasure, I also offer you something new. That is the fact that beginning today, most of our important publishing are handpicked publishing, and this scale will go up as time passes. This will be available to you also simultaneously in Tamil and Marathi. Tamil and Marathi have started today, including this article. And in coming weeks, we will see Bengali, Gujarati and Telugu as well. So please stay with the journey, and you know that this journey is only made possible because so many of you have taken paid subscriptions. So thank you all. Those who haven't, please do. And those who have taken, please top up your subscriptions because that is what keeps us growing. Now we are in 4 languages already: English, Hindi, Marathi and Tamil, and there are 3 more to go. That is Gujarati, Bengali and Telugu. And as time passes, I'm sure we will add more as we go ahead. Now, back to this week's political argument, which I said has overtaken our continuing point over India's defense spending. What does Donald Trump's victory tell us about what leaders do to sweep elections, to lose them, or end up winning but sort of underwhelmingly? Think Trump now, Rahul Gandhi more often than not, and Narendra Modi in June this year. The first lesson from this spectacular Trump win is the formula of 3 for a successful campaign. Let's say nationalism, triumphalism and cynicism. To see how it works, look at the MAGA concept, Make America Great Again concept. You've seen the t-shirts and the caps. That America deserves to be much greater than at present is nationalism. That it will be made great again, harking back to some not so distant glorious past when America was the tops but hasn't been so lately, is triumphalism. Always declare victory before the fight begins. That is triumphalism. And if you argue that America was already great, its economy growing rapidly, having grown to almost twice the Eurozone's GDP compared to about 50% more in 2008, its stock markets are booming and its leadership in technology and innovation is lighting up the world, I will show you what cynicism is. Because in electoral nationalism, my nation is never great enough until I am in charge. Then it will be much better, much greater. As we jump continents and switch to India, we can see why Rahul Gandhi was devastated in 2014 and 2019 while Modi did so well. And then why did Modi fall way short of his own expectations and projections as well as those of the markets and the pollsters? That 240 was a disappointment for him. A victory on points was a letdown for one used to delivering quick knockouts. What brought him to that pass? The Congress and Rahul are simpler to put to the test of our 3 points: nationalism, triumphalism and cynicism. In 2014, Rahul was leading the campaign for a party in power for a decade, the Congress party with UPA. But his campaign rarely, if ever, talked of its achievements. Did his party's decade make India great? And was he now going to make it greater still? Did this decade make India militarily and diplomatically stronger, strategically more secure and globally more influential? What about the airports, great new airports that India built? Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, great new private airports, the metro in Delhi. Did the Congress, UPA, pull India out of the morass in which Vajpayee's BJP and NDA had left it? That's how elections campaigns are run. No such thing. That took away nationalism and triumphalism from Rahul Gandhi's campaign. It was still so much about the rich and the poor, the inequality, the BJP's communalism, his and his party's concern for the poor, the deprived castes, and the tribals. Rahul and his supporters could argue that he was staying closer to the truth, that there was indeed a lot of poverty, deprivation, inequality, even after 10 years of his party's rule. And then they would ask, so how could he then build such a triumphal campaign given all these facts? The answer would be the third part of our 3 point proposition: cynicism. This is politics. You are talking to the voter, or in fact, two kinds of voters specifically: the undecided voters who may not see such a difference between you and your rival and are weighing all options. You want as many of them to swing to your side as possible. And even more importantly, your own loyal voters, because it's imperative that you motivate them so well that they are sure they are on a winning ticket and come out in large numbers to vote. Because you have to get your voters out. That's a very well established principle in all electoral politics. In polarized electorates, in fact, it's things like these that separate electoral routes from sweeps. It's just a few percentage points. By 2019, one would have thought the Congress would come back with a report card on Modi's 5 years to argue that it had been doing so much better in the past, and that if India wanted to go back to the same glorious path that the UPA and Congress had set it on, they had to vote it back in. No such thing happened. It was all about the Modi government's corruption, Chaukidar Chor hai, remember? Rafale, misgovernance, failed demonetization, and of course the boilerplate charges of communalism. The entire campaign was negative. There was nothing to say India was great under the Congress, vote us back in to make it great again or greater still. It is one thing to say that Modi wrote the post-Pulwama surge to override all his failures. But we also need to ask if there was any nationalism in the Congress campaign, or even optimism if triumphalism is too much to expect. Modi in 2014, on the other hand, came riding a wave built on ideas not very different from Trump's in 2024. India's security and armed forces were weak, and the world did not take it seriously. There were frequent terror attacks, and India meekly offered the other cheek. That is nationalism. India was a shaky eye in BRICS, and that he was going to take India to the top again, as it was in its Sone ki Chidiya past. And for China, there would be the Lal Aankh, red eye meaning hard power treatment, and for Pakistan, a 56-inch chest. This was triumphalism. So overwhelming was this, and so wound up was the Congress in its own contradictions, seeking fresh mandate while implicitly repudiating the preceding two, that nobody even reminded Modi that India was coming from a decade of 8% annual GDP growth, or of all the new institutions that had been built in the Congress rule, blah blah blah. And if Modi did not even bother to acknowledge any of this, this was old-fashioned cynicism. He was out to make India great again, not greater, just as Trump has done now. Why then did Modi fall short of his own quite reasonable expectations in 2024? He had said, "Ab ki baar 400 par," but at least 350, 360 with his coalition. That was a reasonable expectation from him. The fact is that he had set up the campaign quite well along the same 3 point winning formula. India had become great under him, as evidenced by the parade of world leaders hugging him on camera at the G20. India was on its way to becoming the world's third largest economy, and the past 5 years had been the most terror-free of the previous 5 decades. That's a fact. Wouldn't you vote for him if he was only going to make India greater still? Now go back to his campaign and pick the 10 high points. Almost all were about what the Congress was saying or what it was promising or allegedly threatening to do. Mangal Sutra, Buffalo, आपकी भैंस ले जाएंगे, Mangal Sutra ले जाएंगे, infiltrators, love of Pakistan, minoritism, casteism, how it had treated leaders from deprived castes shabbily in the past, dynasticism, Corruption, you can keep counting. So many poll planks he had built in the run up to the campaign. Rising global stature, G20, the woman voter, Women's Reservation Bill, Ram Mandir, and the appeal to Jats and OBCs with posthumous Bharat Ratnas for Charan Singh and Karpuri Thakur were all forgotten. This was Modi in his uncharacteristic new defensive avatar. We had noted this in a national interest column on 27th April this year. You can see the front page on your screens. I'm also sharing a link with you, both text and the video. If there was one thing we didn't hear, or definitely not often enough, it was something like this. It was something like, see how I have made India great in just 10 years? Won't you give me 5 years again to make it greater still? The fact is that Modi uncharacteristically got off his winning horse and shifted to an akhada fight. This broke his momentum in key states as the big nationalistic triumphal messages waned from the campaign. An angry, resentful response to the opposition's allegations replaced what usually would have been contemptuous Modi style, do these guys even matter? Cynicism. This wasn't just a shift in messaging. The Modi of 2024 was not riding his troika of propositions that won him two majorities and most recently brought Trump back to power. He was merely fighting to keep what was his. He succeeded in retaining it, though just about. This is how the 303 of 2019 was reduced to 240, while the expectation may have been 350, if not more. A pattern of what works in electoral politics has now been set. You will find some variant of the same in most others as national pride, culture, and identity override pure transactional economics.